partition of British India in 1947, and the subsequent creation of India and Pakistan led to a critical juncture in the history of Jammu and Kashmir. The princely state of Jammu and Kashmir was a large, diverse region, ruled by the Dogra dynasty under British suzerainty from 1846 to 1947. It was a strategically located state with a mix of ethnic and religious communities, including Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and Sikhs. The ruling Maharaja, Hari Singh, faced challenges from both internal movements headed by Sheikh Mohamad Abdullah for democracy and external pressures from India and Pakistan after partition. The state's socio-economic structure was deeply feudal, with a majority Muslim peasantry living under the dominance of Hindu ruling elite. This context was crucial in its eventual accession to India in 1947. Maharaja Hari Singh, the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, sought to maintain the state's independence rather than accede to either India or Pakistan. He signed a standstill agreement with Pakistan to continue trade and communications while avoiding immediate political alignment. However, his reluctance to join Pakistan was influenced by concerns over religious intolerance. At the same time, he was not willing to join India due to fears of losing his autocratic power under democratic policies. Geographically, Kashmir shared deep connections with Pakistan, as it was contiguous with the newly formed country. The state's major rivers, including the Jhelum, Chenab, and Indus, flowed into Pakistan, making its economy and trade naturally linked to the region. Roads and trade routes provided Kashmir with essential supplies, further integrating it with Pakistan. Religiously, Kashmir had a Muslim majority, with around 77% of its population being Muslim at the time of partition. The cultural and religious ties between Kashmiri Muslims and the people of Pakistan, especially those in Punjab and the northwest frontier province, were strong. Many in Pakistan believed that Kashmir, as a Muslim-majority region, should naturally be part of their country based on the two-nation theory. What happens then is that the leaders of the Muslim-majority region of Kashmir decide to join India, a Hindu-majority state, instead of Pakistan, which was founded on religious grounds. The tribal invasion of Kashmir in 1947 served as a pretext for signing the Instrument of Accession with India. However, historical evidence suggests that Kashmir's leaders had already decided to join India before the invasion. The attack by Pakistani-backed tribal forces accelerated the process, leading Maharaja Hari Singh to seek India's assistance and formally integrate Kashmir into the Indian Union. During partition, while Indians were fighting against the imperialist rule of British, Kashmiris, led by Sheikh Abdullah and the National Conference, were fighting against the Dogra monarchy and the oppressive feudal system that had kept the majority Muslim peasantry in poverty for decades. In the process, during the Dogra rule in Kashmir, 1846 to 1947, thousands of Kashmiris lost their lives due to repression, forced labor, Begar, and uprisings against the regime. One of the most significant massacres was in 13 July 1931, when Dogra forces killed 22 Kashmiri protesters in Srinagar. Additionally, during various uprisings and revolts, mostly Muslims were killed or displaced. The exact number of lives lost over the entire Dogra rule remains uncertain due to limited historical records. The Naya Kashmir Manifesto, 1944, was a progressive political document drafted by the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference, led by Sheikh Abdullah. Inspired by socialist ideals, it aimed to establish a democratic and egalitarian society in Kashmir. The manifesto proposed land reforms, universal education, economic modernization, and equal rights for all citizens, regardless of religion or class. It was a direct challenge to the autocratic Dogra rule and sought to transform Kashmir into a welfare state. the document played a crucial role in shaping Kashmir's political landscape and influencing later reforms in the region. During the partition, the Kashmir leadership faced a dilemma about whether to join Pakistan, a Muslim state, or India. They feared that implementing the Naya Kashmir Manifesto, 1944, which emphasized land reforms and social justice, would be difficult in Pakistan. On the other hand, Jawaharlal Nehru's socialist approach in India allowed states to introduce progressive land reforms, making it a more favorable choice. While Pakistan was founded based on religious identity, India, under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, promoted secularism and socio-economic reforms. A key element that influenced the decision of Kashmir's leadership, particularly Sheikh Abdullah and the National Conference, to align with India was the issue of land reforms and feudalism. During this time, India was actively discussing and implementing land reforms aimed at dismantling feudal structures and uplifting the poor. In contrast, the Muslim League, which led Pakistan's independence movement, remained largely silent on these issues due to its reliance on feudal landowners. This silence and lack of progressive economic policies played a decisive role in motivating Kashmir's leadership, particularly Sheikh Mohamad Abdullah, to prefer accession to India over Pakistan. The feudal system in Kashmir was similar to that in other parts of India, but had its own unique aspects. Jagadars and zamindars, a privileged class of landlords, owned extensive tracts of land, while the peasantry had no ownership rights. Begar, forced labor. Kashmiri Muslim peasants were often subjected to unpaid labor for the ruling class. Excessive taxation. The economic burden of land revenue collection fell heavily on the working class, further widening the inequality gap. Pertinently, Sheikh Abdullah emerged as a powerful voice for the Kashmiri people in the 1930s and 1940s. He founded the All Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference in 1932, later renamed the National Conference, to push for socio-economic justice and land rights. His vision for an egalitarian Kashmir was encapsulated in the Naya Kashmir Manifesto of 1944, which called for land redistribution to peasants, abolition of landlordism and feudal structures, equal rights and economic empowerment for all communities, state-led industrial and educational reforms. Sheikh Abdullah's movement was not just about independence from the Dogra rule. It was also about ensuring that power and resources were equitably distributed among Kashmiris. The Indian National Congress, under leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, was committed to socialist ideals and land reforms. Nehru himself had deep sympathies with the peasantry and supported policies that would dismantle feudalism. By the late 1940s, India had already begun discussing and implementing land reforms in various regions, aiming to abolish zamindari, landlordism, and redistribute land to tenants, provide security of tenure to farmers, promote agricultural development through state intervention. These policies directly aligned with the aspirations of Sheikh Abdullah and the National Conference, making India a natural ally in the struggle for economic justice. In stark contrast, the Muslim League, which led Pakistan's independence movement, remained largely silent on land reforms. This was primarily because influence of feudal landowners. The Muslim League was supported by powerful landlords in Punjab, Sindh, and Bengal, who opposed any redistribution of land. Focus on religious identity over economic justice. The League prioritized the creation of a Muslim-majority state rather than addressing socio-economic disparities. Lack of a progressive economic vision. Unlike India's Congress, which had a clear roadmap for agrarian reforms, Pakistan lacked a structured approach to addressing economic inequalities. For Sheikh Abdullah and his supporters, this silence indicated that accession to Pakistan would mean the continuation of feudal exploitation and economic stagnation. While economic policies played a crucial role in Kashmir's leanings toward India, another significant event accelerated the decision: the tribal invasion of 1947. Pakistanis perceived that Sheikh Mohamad Abdullah was influencing Maharaja Hari Singh to accede to India, as Abdullah openly opposed Pakistan and aligned ideologically with Nehru's socialist policies. Although Hari Singh initially sought independence, his reluctance to join Pakistan and growing ties with India fueled suspicions in Pakistan. Moreover, despite India's refusal to sign a standstill agreement, Pakistan had signed one with the Maharaja, expecting Kashmir to eventually align with them. However, when no progress was made toward accession, and fearing that India might take control, Pakistan facilitated the tribal invasion in October 1947. The invasion, carried out by Pakistani-backed Pashtun tribesmen, aimed to seize Kashmir by force before it could accede to India. This attack ultimately backfired, prompting Hari Singh to seek India's military help and sign the Instrument of Accession, bringing Kashmir under Indian control. Maharaja Hari Singh signed the Instrument of Accession to India on October 26, 1947, under certain conditions. The key condition was that Jammu and Kashmir would retain autonomy, except in matters of defense, foreign affairs and communications, which would be handled by India. The special status was later reinforced through Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, granting Kashmir significant autonomy, including its own constitution, flag and laws. However, during the tribal invasion, Pakistan captured about 37% of Jammu and Kashmir, which includes Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir, AJK. India retained about 63% of the region, which includes Jammu, the Kashmir Valley and Ladakh. This territory remained under Indian control following the Instrument of Accession signed by Maharaja Hari Singh. Once Kashmir acceded to India, Sheikh Abdullah became the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. One of his first major reforms was the Big Landed Estates Abolition Act of 1950, which abolished landlordism and transferred land to the tillers without compensation to landlords, benefited over 200,000 peasant families, making them landowners. After Kashmir acceded to India, the Indian government allowed Kashmiris to implement land reforms, benefiting peasants and reducing feudal control. However, politically, it suppressed Kashmiris, leading to betrayals, repression, and human rights violations. Sheikh Abdullah, Kashmir's tallest leader, was jailed for over 20 years after questioning India's commitments. Over time, India amended Kashmir's special status, gradually eroding its autonomy. The most significant move came in 2019, when Article 370 was abrogated, stripping Kashmir of its special status. This was followed by crackdowns, mass detentions, internet shutdowns, and allegations of torture and extrajudicial killings of Kashmiri youth. The region continues to experience political suppression, military presence, and deep mistrust between Kashmiris and the Indian state.